Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Soul Collective. Today's episode feels really personal and honestly a little tender to share. I'm sitting down with my doula to talk about one of the most profound, challenging, messy, and beautiful experiences of my life. My birthing story. This has been a long time in the making. It's been 9 months since Phoenix was born, and I finally feel ready to share some of my experience that I hope will be beneficial to you. Whatever big experience you are in the midst of birthing right now, whether it's a literal birth or a metaphorical birth of change or transformation that you are moving through, I hope this episode will serve you whatever season of life you're in. And, this experience stretched me in ways I didn't know that I could stretch physically, emotionally, spiritually. It brought up fears, it brought up power, it brought up so much that I couldn't have even imagined. And birth for me wasn't just a physical process, it was a shamanic experience of connecting in multidimensional realms, really being connected with the earth realm and the angelic realm and the shamanic realm simultaneously. It was an initiation. And sharing it here feels cathartic, it feels healing, and it feels like a part of the integration. So I'm offering this story not just for those walking into the threshold of motherhood, but for anyone moving through a birth of any kind, a birth or a rebirth, whether it's creative, emotional, spiritual, or entirely unseen by the outside world. We are in a collective and season of deep transformation. This is a 9 year, the year of the snake, which is about shedding of skin, of alchemizing. And 9 is about the ending of a cycle. It's about integration and emerging anew. And so I hope this conversation serves as a reminder of what's possible when we surrender to the wisdom of our body, to infinite intelligence and our own intuition. And I just want to thank you for being here. Thank you for listening with an open heart. So, without further ado, let's dive into the conversation with my doula, Candice Enriquez.
And I do my best to protect women in that space. But at the same time, it's not like I know in my heart of hearts, in my soul, and the part of me that has done birth work for probably many lifetimes, that that is not the way that it's meant to be, right? Now, if a mother is very young, very uneducated, she may need guidance and direction. And of course, women should support women in that sense, or like exploring positions and things like that makes sense. But a lot of times, if we just wait and be aware of what we're projecting onto the mother and hold a space of open consciousness, that energy will move through her. And anybody in the room is just getting to witness a miracle, and we need to be grateful.
Yeah. Yeah.
You but so when we come in and we think we know, right? Um, it's so tough because not everybody's like you in birth, right? Not everybody has done the work and wants to do the work and wants to go within. There does seem to be a subgroup of women that maybe tend to err on the avoidant side, and they will begin avoiding a bit in birth. But I think we have to be very careful as birth workers to think that we can drag them into what they're avoiding and make them confront it and deal with it. And it's like, actually, It the reason so to doula, and I'm not crazy about that word, and we can go into that in a second, but we need to mother the mother. So
Mm.
just like you wouldn't take a little kid and give them a hammer without showing them how to use it, You wouldn't take, you know, I guess what I'm saying is we have to scaffold for women.
Mm.
We have to pace and lead them, right? So it's kind of like I've been on this crazy trip. Let me show you how I got there. It was the path of acceptance,
Yeah. Mother
right?
mother, I love that of really holding space. I mean, the womb in and of itself is holding space, and I feel like that is such a beautiful gift of the divine feminine is the ability to hold space. And I love how this is already unfolding because birth is truly such a portal, an opening, an initiation. And for my experience, especially, I felt all of these things of such an activation.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I mean, already our conversation is so nonlinear and just so um really like the metaphor of what birth is in so many ways. And I'm so grateful and honored to welcome you to the Soul Collective to have this expansive conversation and really go into the deep places and spaces that you and I met in the experience of birth. You
Mhm.
know, we actually recorded a conversation earlier,
Yeah.
and I'm so trusting of the divine perfection of technology and how we're being invited to re-record because I feel like this conversation is meeting at a deeper place and space of integration.
Yeah.
There's so many layers that were ignited and activated through this experience of birth. And, for those listening to this conversation, I really feel the invitation to say, birth is truly a metaphor. Yes, we are talking about the depth and the messy and the beautiful and the expansive realm of birth, but truly this could be a birth of any sense,
Yeah.
the birth, your most exalted self, a new identity, the birth of a new, era of consciousness which we're moving through. So wherever this, conversation about birth is meeting you, I hope that it serves, but it's certainly, a gift and liberating to just share, from the heart my own personal experience. I'll just, start it off by saying, I didn't know why source was guiding me to you initially as my doula. There were other, doulas that my partner and I knew, and
Mhm.
and yet when we had a conversation, it was over the phone first time. It was just like this ping of yes, like this is your guide. Just say yes and trust. And to be honest, like there was a long period of time when I was pregnant. We had conversations here and there that were, lovely. And yet it wasn't until the very moment of walking into labor of love, which was the center that, I actually gave birth in, where it was this full body knowing
Mhm.
that this is why.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. I think that birth, in the same way, okay, we have all this literature about how conscious spiritual union can bring us to our higher self, right? Like those that are into like yoga and tantra and right, like, and I've only like dipped my toe in that, but like what I know in my heart of hearts is that birth does that too. But just like you have to like have the right space to have that amazing tantric union, right? You gotta have that space to have that amazing type of birth experience. And the main thing that you need, and I was so gifted by my midwife and my doula when I was giving birth with my daughter when I was 25, because they let this space be about me. They didn't make it about them. It's a huge problem we have inside of our medical community is the energy of control, that patriarchal domination thing. That is the last thing that a woman needs in birth. She can't step into her divine feminine, her power. She can't do that if somebody's pushing that on her. It's very difficult. And then we say, "Oh, look, birth is broken. Now we need these tools to fix you." No, well, we just didn't make the room right for the hormones to activate, right? Does that make sense?
It
And
does.
those hormones are freaking everything, right?
Yeah, there's so much that you shared there, and I think one of the things that really stands out for me is the allowance and the witnessing and the meeting of all parts of self, and that was something that was so palpable in your energy was just the way that you showed up for me with unconditional love and belief and really patience in the process and the in the divine timing and the flow.
Yeah.
And just going back, like, I just kinda wanna paint the picture, and it's also just helpful just to kind of remember, there's some people that speak of birth, and they're like, "It was the most blissful experience. There was 2 pushes, and the baby came out," and that is amazing, and that is so beautiful. And that was not my experience.
Yeah.
I was in prodromal labor, which is like when you feel like your labor is happening. Um, you're getting the contractions. For me, they were extremely intense. I wasn't able to sleep for a week.
Yeah.
Um, and that was my experience leading up to birth. So I hadn't slept a lot, at all. But I was in excruciating pain and exhausted. And then active labor initiated.
Mhm.
And so, there was a moment, actually, there were so many moments of that experience where I thought, I can't do this. I have never met a pain or a level of experience that shook me in this way of really, truly not fathoming how.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
And throughout that process, I mean, you were unwavering in seeing me and my desire to bring through, you know, Phoenix in this way, and knowing that it was possible, seeing in me something that I didn't even in that moment see or feel.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so you're able to really like anchor me into a higher timeline or into really what my soul's highest desire was, even in the moments that were so scary for me,
Mhm.
painful, deep,
Mhm.
tender.
Mhm.
I really feel as though, this experience for me was an initiation and such a connecting with different realms simultaneously and an experience that was so palpable. I felt like I was in the angelic realm, in the shamanic realm, connecting with all of these multidimensional aspects of myself
Mhm.
simultaneously and calling them back to
Mhm.
be able to really rise into this experience.
Yeah, that soul retrieval sort of thing is like a part of the passage of motherhood, and if we look at ancient cultures, we see men have a lot of rites of passage. Women don't have so much, some do, But that's because we didn't need it. It was built into our biology. As we become mothers, we have this amazing activation that takes place inside of us energetically. I think that connects us to the higher soul, right? Or is an opportunity to, anyway, right? And and we don't have to be perfectly clear vessels. And it doesn't matter if it was 2 pushes and the baby's out, or if you had to work for 3 days to make that happen. If it happens, right? And I think one of the things we've got to stop doing as women is comparing our births. I think it's good to collect information, and it's good to share stories if it's healing. But I don't think it's good to take on other people's story if it's not ours to carry, right? Or compare. And so the point that I'm trying to get to is there is something that I see in birth, and if I can just share, I'm a bit of a seer. Sometimes I'm a hearer, but usually I'm a feeler. But in birth, I can see a little bit more than in my regular waking state. And by seer, I mean visions, right? And so what I see in the birth is a giant crown chakra opening, and I think it's very important that we that are in this space standing there, if we have some awareness and reverence that that's what's happening, we can allow it in. We cannot muddy it up. We can go, "Oh, source moving in," right? I'm gonna open my heart and clear my mind and be aware of what's happening, right? And one of the reasons I am a doula, not a midwife, is because I recognize that might be hard to do if I'm just got a thinking cap on, and don't get me wrong, I give a lot of credit to midwives because I don't know if I could hold those spaces. I can't. So I went with the kind of energy healing, hypno doula route, right? Because I knew what just needed to happen was I just needed to help this lady drop in. If I can just help her drop in, she's gonna witness everything moving by. So I don't know if you've ever studied like the chakras, the meridians. I'm sure you have. I'm sure a lot of people that listen to your podcast have. Um, I don't know about you guys, but I was like skipping school when I was 17 and I was like checking out the chakra and astrology section of half price books in Dallas, Texas. But anyway, so the point is that I've always been kind of like really wanting to dig into this stuff and the energetics of who we are, right? And so what I see as a birth worker that I don't share with everybody walking down the street, but maybe to the people that listen to your work will appreciate is we have a pillar of light inside of us, right? It's where, all of our chakras are aligning. That's probably going to triple or quadruple when you're in birth. Okay. So if you have people in the room that are able to give reverence to that and not try to use that energy for their own agenda, it's going to help the mother.
Yeah, because, in a way, there is just a remembrance of the power and the light within. And you're holding really, truly this beautiful divine mirror to allow that process to unfold.
Yeah.
And, simultaneously, I would say, at least in my experience of this birth journey in particular, there was so much of a reclamation, so much of body sovereignty that came up. I mean, you even shared with me afterwards, like even the experience of hearing and feeling and having this palpable connection to energy, masculine energy, that being, perhaps represented by my father's energy. Right, of really, like, "Oh, why is she not going to the hospital?" Like, almost this fearful energy of, like, "What's gonna happen? How is this gonna unfold? Like, is this the right thing to be doing, right or wrong energy?" And that of looking outside of myself for authority or power or, like, medical, that had been a part of previous timelines. So there was a very real part of me that was healing that in that moment.
Yes. A birth can be so healing. in that way that it could sort of rewrite the story that's in our body, provided are given that we are provided the right feminine support around us for that to happen. But yes, we have to cross those thresholds of the inner child that doesn't want to deal, or that doesn't want, or maybe has some sense of learned helplessness. Like, we have to collect that dust that's been sitting there, and that light comes through and it blasts all that out. Right? So it's like I'm standing there and I'm doing the rebozo and I'm comforting dad, and maybe I'm saying some hypnotic things, or I even have my crystal out. But what my experience is I'm feeling all your doshas.
Mm.
I'm feeling that light just I'm feeling it move through the room, and I'm feeling you clear, and I'm acknowledging this is clearing. This is clearing. This is clearing, right? So I don't explain my process to everybody, but since the people that are into your stuff are aware of this like multidimensional space that we exist in, right? When we're in birthing, we're clearing. And what I see is that sometimes these births that are more challenging, and yours had challenging moments, right? And not to say that it didn't make it beautiful and amazing, but there was definitely like, whoa, are we like, is this happening? Yeah, this is happening, right? And I think what some of that is like ancestral stuff that gets burned off in the birth process. And it kind of sucks because it's like, why I got to carry that? but, but, and we can get frustrated and we can fight when we get that energy. But when we realize we're burning it off for our child.
1000%. Yeah, because I really truly believe that who I needed to become to meet my child was a different version of myself. And parts of me needed to release and let go. And yes, part of those were like ancestral. And also, those were just like programs and patterns of limiting beliefs that have had accumulated that were ready to be seen, witnessed, and released. And I really truly compare my birth experience to an ayahuasca ceremony because there was a purging. There was, just the moments of like being in a multi-dimensional realm, which actually took place really the entire birthing process for me. And I remember just calling out, like, please, God,
Yes.
over and over and over again, and I have full body chills as I say that because it's not something that I find myself calling out in this way on a regular basis, but it pushed me to really, like, surrender
Yep.
in the truest sense to a divine will that was ready to be birthed through me and through that experience. And I want to kind of go back to something that you said because there was this divine mirror of the archetype of doing something the right or wrong way that appeared through this experience, which was in the first there was two midwives that supported in the journey, and one had been on the shift for an extremely long period of time. My birth was active labor for 20 hours. And so she had been there for such a long period of time. She was exhausted. Her shift was ending. And there was just this moment where, you and I both feel that I may not have been fully dilated at that period of time, but just this like push to encourage me rather forcefully to push, and then, like, you're not pushing correctly, and I just that moment for me was such a breaking point, and the reason why I bring it up is because it illuminated this program or this limiting belief of there being a right or wrong way of doing things. And that really was wanting to be alchemized, wanting to be burned away and witnessed in that process. And there was just a moment where I really just, you know, I can't remember exactly, but you and I just had this, I feel like, understanding of like, no.
I remember what I did, if it's okay if I share my experience of it. I remember I didn't agree with what was going on. I didn't feel it. Like, I say that, but, like, a deeper way of explaining was I didn't have confidence in what the midwife was doing, but as a doula, I'm not really supposed to question what the midwife is doing entirely. Like, I should default that she has medical expertise, but at the same time, we should kinda be able to work together, especially if it's a birth center midwife, right? But I kinda understood that maybe the approach that she was taking was like, "Let's get her done." And, like, maybe that needs to happen occasionally in birth, but usually not, okay? And so, I remember leaving the room for a second and being like, "I'm gonna get a cup of coffee." And I remember kind of dropping in and thinking, I'm actually kinda trying to communicate with the midwife on some other realm, beyond the ego realm, but, like, just kinda trying to communicate with, like, what if she's not actually fully dilated? We don't want her to push her cervix shut, and you have not confirmed that she's 10 centimeters. I don't think this is a great idea. Um, so I remember leaving. I remember seeing you push, and I remember seeing blood rush down your legs. Um, and I just remember kind of sending out the frequency of "I gotta know," "I gotta know." And then I think I said something like, "Do you think we can walk around for a little bit? Do you think we can utilize gravity some more?" That was a polite way of me not kind of interfering with her expertise, of just saying, "Hey, like, maybe baby's not quite low enough for us to begin active pushing," right?
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
And
and yeah, go ahead.
that was such a powerful moment,
Yeah.
because I feel either I said it verbally or
Mhm.
internally, but it was, "I do not consent to
Yeah.
this." And there was yeah.
I think you said, if I remember correctly, I think you said something like, "This is not working," and I was like, "Yeah, why don't we go walk around for a little bit?" I think I
Yep. Yeah.
came in, like, tried to scoop you up and be like, "Yeah, let's just go walk around outside," right? Like, that can't hurt anything, right?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, and so powerful to say, "I do not consent," and to have the space to be in more of a feminine flow at that moment,
Yep.
incredibly healing because I know that there were past timelines where that wasn't possible.
Also, just wanna throw out there, that's very hard to do in a hospital setting. It it's possible, don't get me wrong, it's possible, and some personalities do better at doing that than others. But, like, I also think that you made the right choice for you in opting out of hospital. Obviously, you know that already, but just letting women know, like, yeah, you can have a natural birth in a hospital, but it is very different than if you're in, like, a cabin with two midwives. The whole feel is extremely different than if you're in this hustling, bustling insurance protocol place. Like,
Absolutely.
completely different. You're gonna be a lot more likely to feel your sovereign energy than if you've got a million people in the grind all around you holding that frequency, right?
Yeah, and, I feel like the energetics of
Mm.
birth is so much in the feminine, in the allowing, in the intuition, in the surrendering, in the non-linear. And there's so much of birth in the maybe mainstream medical
Yeah,
community that is in the masculine frequency. And this energy that we were recalling was really more in that masculine energy of time and needs to be done this way, a right or a wrong way. And I
right.
just want to make the parallel and comparison for anybody listening to this, experience that maybe isn't related with going through like an actual physical human birth. Because I feel like this, for me at least, parallels so much to the healing journey in general and our awakening. Because there can be this sense of, am I doing it the right way? Or this is going on a really long time. Like, why am I not there yet? Wherever
Like, and am I good enough? Do I really have to do this? All those layers come up, right?
all of those layers come up. And it's so parallel to this journey of really meeting ourself in a deeper way and having the deepest compassion that is possible, to allow whatever timing to occur and to lose actually sight of like it needs to be done in this timing and in this way.
That right there, the deepest compassion. Isn't it cool that we have to learn to have the deepest compassion for ourselves ever in the birthing experience right before we have to feed a baby every 2 hours?
That part.
There's some divine order in that, and getting to the amazing opportunity that we have as women. Don't get me wrong, it's not always rainbows, right? Like, there's some real challenges we face as women, right? But the opportunity that we have to hold the capacity for the feeling, for the experience of compassion as we're burning off all those layers of ancestral stuff, as we're having to confront our inner child that just wants to hide her head in the pillow, right? Like, the level of compassion that we experience in birth, that we can experience in birth if we're willing and if we have the right support to. Birth is oxytocin, birth is love. And how that became about power and control, I don't know, but we've got to stop it, because the worst thing that I see is women who have a mindset of power and control, trying to control other women in birth. It's awful. We've got to refine this place of women connecting with women on a soul level. It's what's going to bring the fabric of humanity back. And that can happen in the birth, that can absolutely happen in the postpartum period. Um, but yeah, sorry, I just had a moment bubble up of like frustration. But it's hard to be a doula and witness some of the things that I witness, the way that nurses will treat the women. And it's like, whoa, this is so far removed from our the capacity of the human heart, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's so important right now, because what I think's happening on the planet is that we're making this shift, and I got this message a few years ago. We're shifting from this, I see it like a fabric almost, of control to one of connection,
Mm.
authentic connection with other, right? Self and other, right? And you have to have authentic connection with self to get authentic connection with other, right?
Oh,
Um, so yeah, birth does that. If you're open to it, if you're willing to hold space for that miracle, and
yeah,
every single time it happens, it's a miracle.
truly. It
Yeah,
truly is. And, I can only speak from my personal experience. What you're saying that is activated within me is not only the experience through birth, but also into motherhood
yeah,
and connected also to the experience collectively that we're moving through, which, as you mentioned, is the releasing of systems and structures that no longer serve us. And I feel that thread or that through line for me is about sustainability. It's about a more feminine way of being, and that experience can be felt through birth, yes, can be felt through motherhood, perhaps this return to more of a supportive environment, like I'll speak from my experience as like postpartum, post-birth, which is like, yes, it does take a village. And in our modern fast-paced society, which is like that bounce back culture or, valuing doing over being, nursing, and being present, which is truly, and from my vantage point, one of the greatest gifts that we can possibly give,
Yeah.
right? To that through line of how that's played out in the collective currently, where we are in a society that is so busy,
Yeah.
the fast paced,
Yeah.
go, 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 and that we are being invited in each of these ways to embrace more of a feminine way, just feminine in the energetics
Yeah.
of more softening,
Mhm.
more releasing of time, more
Mhm.
present, more rest. And I'm speaking this like to myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I
You
get
know,
it.
these patterns are so woven deeply and
It's
not just burned off in birth. Like this is carried on and it's a shedding still.
yeah, of the old programs that are no longer serving us, and as women, we have to understand that if we're gonna reclaim motherhood, we have to reclaim that sacred time of breastfeeding our children. Yes, it is true that, breastfeeding full for a full year is about the same amount of time as a full-time job with, like, 2 weeks vacation or whatever, right? Like, that is true, but guess what? It's the foundation of a lifetime for your child to feel healthy attachment style, right?
Yeah. And how powerful with these new star seeds coming in, incarnating at this time, there is truly not a greater gift, I feel, than to provide that unconditional love, support, nourishment.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, of course, it's going to be messed with in certain ways. Um, but we are reclaiming that.
We are, and I think one of the greatest things that you can do is, like, rebelliously allow your baby to contact nap on you every afternoon. Because there's that pull of like, "Oh, the day's almost gone, and I really need to do the dishes and the laundry and the this and the that." And it's like, my daughter is 14 now, and she's beautiful and amazing, and just went to her spring school dance wearing combat boots, and I love it, and, the point is that when I think about, like, my favorite times with her, it's her being, like, 1, and I'm sitting there in the rocker, and there was a part of my brain that thought, "Am I playing hooky? Like, I'm not getting anything fucking done." And then the other part of me was like, "Who cares?" And I'm just kissing her little toes. And I say that because I know in that moment, I was dropping out in the same way that I was dropping out a nonlinear time with you. I was dropping out a nonlinear time with her. And I was telling her, "I love you, I love you, I love you." And that's the most important thing, right? That's the foundation of a life of a person that doesn't feel like they need to be in a rat race, right? That's a person that lives with purpose. That's a person that lives with love. Right? So as we have these children that are gonna recreate something beautiful, right? Motherhood is crucial, and it's been shoved down, we've been disconnected. We could talk about religion, I don't wanna go into that too deep. Um, but, clearly there's been this almost seems like a purposeful removal of the sacred feminine, and when you're pregnant, it's such an opportunity to remember that.
It it really is. I could not have fathomed
Mhm,
the journey of motherhood
mhm,
and its many just facets and nuances
mhm.
to ignite and activate a deeper remembrance of who we truly are. I mean, it is such an initiation. It's such a gift. And like you said, so miraculous. And like for those that are not choosing to walk the path of motherhood in this lifetime or at this now moment, like the
Yeah,
message that's coming through for me is how are we mothering ourselves?
absolutely. And not only that, how are we supporting mother? Because we need really cool aunts.
Yeah. How are we
We
supporting mothers? But
Yeah,
really, like, as you so beautifully illuminated, it's all a mirror and it starts with ourselves. And it starts with how we're mothering ourselves and how we're tending to ourselves. And, you know, I've compared it or it's kind of come through a lot of ways. Like the birthing journey parallels the healing journey. And that when we are mothering ourselves on our own healing journey, our own sacred rite of remembrance, whatever that looks like, however that shows up and presents for each of us, it is in the mothering, in how we're holding space for ourselves, how we're meeting ourselves in the deepest places and spaces,
yeah,
how we're allowed to be in that place of healing and that place of, I don't need to do anything or be anyone.
yeah, or feel that feeling that we've buried,
Yeah.
right? Or feel that disappointment or feel that rage or whatever it is that needs to be experienced.
Yeah.
And, not necessarily that we need to act on it, but that we know, like, we feel it and we release it, right? Yeah, I think that I've been called to birth work because I could see deeply that there was some soul growth process in the experience. And of course, like, it's a new life, it's a soul coming in, like, duh. But like what I was actually seeing, and don't get me wrong, I love babies. They're awesome. I'd have a million if I could probably. My ovaries hurt every time I see a baby right now. Um, I think I'm done having babies, so I'm in a different place of life. But the point is that it wasn't really about the babies. Of course, it was about the babies, but it was about supporting the mother and this amazing process. Because if we support the mother, she will support her baby,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Well, I just want to thank you and just honor you for the gift that you have been in my life. Truly.
Aw, thank you, thank you.
And I realized that what I needed was someone to truly see me. I didn't need the technical of like, this is how it's done or the logistics. And yes, you know all of that. Like you're a wealth of knowledge and information, but I needed somebody to see me and to hold space for all of me.
Mhm.
So thank you.
You're welcome. It was my honor. We're all clearing so much right now. We need to remember to be kind and gentle, right?
Yeah. And to be seen and witnessed in the totality. I mean, for me, that is transparency. That is the age that we are moving into. It's, the ability to be seen and witnessed for all of who we are and not need to hide anything.
Mhm.
And so, what a beautiful gift to be able to witness another being with unconditional love, free of judgment,
Yeah.
and also to witness someone else's power.
Yes. Mhm. What's coming to mind to me is alignment. I feel that word a lot, and I feel like, we were in a divine alignment. Like, there was something about your energy, my energy, it was just like a match. It was helped the energy to move through the way that it needed to. Um, but I just think that in your birthing, there was such divine alignment, even with the one midwife going and the one midwife coming. And, I tell women, like, trust the divine process, trust the flow, trust the divine timing. It won't necessarily make sense logically, and you could pick it apart and analyze it, but trust that divine timing, even if it's taking longer than you expected, even if it's not 2 pushes and the baby's out, right? But trust the divine timing of it. Be gentle and patient, you know?
Yeah. And what's coming through for me to share is, there I feel pretty complete about sharing this experience.
Yeah.
Yet there's something else that is that gentle force that was my partner in that experience. And it just feels important to share because he was such a big part of that experience as well. And I really feel as though he embodied the sacred masculine for
He
me.
did. He did.
And he was able to just hold this column, this pillar of support and unwavering trust of you've got this and I'm here for you. And that was so beautiful to be held in that energy.
Yes, absolutely. And there's a place for this in birth, and birth workers need to understand this and honor this. Um, is that we sometimes need to step out and let dad step in for a second, right? And maybe this is a little different nowadays than it was historically. I think we have like different roles a little bit in modern relationship and marriages. We're just together more, right? Like it's just different than it was 400, 500 years ago, right? So, but we really are partners in modern relationships. We we expect a lot out of them, right? You know? And he definitely stepped up, and I think it's important for birth workers to remember, like, you're not doing your job because you step out of the room for 30 minutes and just let the mom and dad be together.
Right.
Like, you meddle too much, right? And even, like, I've been doing this for, like, you know, rough a little less than 14 years, so it's like, maybe the doula that I was 10 years ago maybe would have felt like I wasn't doing enough.
Mm,
Because it's not like, when the truth is that I just was like, "Hey, make sure she has her water," you
mhm.
know? Like, that is me being inside meditating, right? It was actually where I needed to be. I needed to let you guys do your thing and not stepped in that. So I was also witnessing that sacred dance between you 2 without getting in it. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, there was such an attunement on all levels that was occurring and transpiring. And you're right. It's like attuning, okay. Like what's highest and best in this moment is for them to be together, to be perhaps alone, or for me to support Alex, or for me to, support Emily in this moment, or, for and we were just all I feel like navigating that. But what was really beautiful, because you mentioned the roles that, you know, in modern day we see our partner,
Yeah.
so much oftentimes.
Yeah.
How deep do we see
Yeah.
our partner,
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, birth was such a vulnerable,
Yeah.
messy experience, and to feel loved and held by him excuse me, by him
Yeah.
out that journey was incredibly healing and beautiful. And so I just wanna also honor him because he was such a huge part. And those moments when I really felt like I need to go to the hospital, like this, there's no other way. Both you and him were like, you've got this. You can do this. You both saw my power
Mhm.
and the possibility that I couldn't see in that moment.
Mhm. And you reclaimed that aspect of self, right? That maybe had the old programming that you needed the medical care. You get what I'm saying, right? Like, it was yeah, he did so amazing. He's definitely up there on the list of the dads that I've seen be supportive, right? I'm actually so impressed just in the last 5 years. I don't know if it's the particular clients I'm attracting or I think it's actually men nowadays are just more informed, are more emotionally attuned, are more emotionally intelligent, um, in the birth space. Yeah, I think it's really cool because it can really bring together a couple and help them to bond in a really amazing way before the baby is born.
Yeah. Yeah. It can, and I imagine just the infinite nature of birth and just how varied the experience is, and I'm sure you've witnessed just so many different kinds of births, and just like you said, it's like there is no right way or, better way or more perfect way. Um, and these experiences I feel are they meet us in a way that allows for something to be revealed.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for all that has been and continues to be revealed, for me through this experience.
Yeah, I think that the witnessing the love that your partner had was pretty awesome, especially because I know he was receiving text messages and phone calls from, like, really nervous people, and I saw him be kind of like a protector in you, right? Like, for you, right? Um But yeah, and you guys kinda went some depths in there in the shower, and I could feel, like, you guys were in the shower, and it's like, "Ooh, I'm gonna step out for a second, like, this is deep," like, he's helping you move through some of that. So, yeah, he held that safety of the divine masculine while you were moving through some of those spaces. I remember that clearly in your birth, which is so lovely, and I remember seeing you sit backwards on the toilet and feeling like for a second, maybe I hadn't slept in a while, but, like, feeling like you had, like, wings on the back of you, and I could just see that you were moving through that. Like, there was stuff you were releasing, and it was so important that you released it, and our role supporting you was just reminding you that all that stuff that you're feeling and experiencing, that's not the real you, and I just remember, kind of seeing you move into this place. I remember you I mean, I've been to a lot of births. I've spent a lot of hours in birth, but definitely one of the ones that I remember was seeing those wings on the back of you on toilet. And maybe that was like a message that there was an angel there or whatever that was, when you're kind of in a state where you haven't slept that much, like whatever. I wasn't reading into it too much, but it was clear that I was in sacred space. But I also remember this moment where you were in it. You were in it. And I remember you leaned into me on my chest. And I remember holding you. And I felt really honored that you could be that vulnerable with me, that you were not running from it. You were feeling it. And you just needed another human being, maybe connected a bit, but like you simply need another person to hold you in that minute. And it took all of, like, 2 or 3 minutes, and then what a shift occurred in the room,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know? And, Emily, this is where I want you to give yourself some real friggin' credit because you're doing the work, you know? And I just got lucky enough to have a mom to work with that was doing the work, that could see the deeper stuff. I can't talk this way with most people. Right? Um So, really the power's in you. Yes, it's important that we support you as women supporting women, but that power was in you, that willingness to go into that vulnerability. You did that, not me, right?
Yeah, and truthfully, it's something that I didn't even know was possible. It's not an experience that I've ever had before, but I'm so grateful to know that I can meet myself and another in that way with such vulnerability and allow myself to be held because sometimes it is really hard. I'll speak for myself personally to allow ourselves to receive, to allow myself to receive and to know that that love, that support is available for all of us. And really like what I saw as you were just sharing was really how we are each helping each other to remember, like Ram Dass, I believe it was, said, like we're each walking each other home. We each,
Yeah.
brothers and sisters of light that are awakening, activating, shining a divine light to help another remember who they are. And it just goes on and on and on.
Okay, thank you. I'm so sorry. The old man next door just left me greens on my front porch. Speaking of, so funny as you're saying that, there's this guy walking up to my door with a cane. Absolutely. And receiving. Thank you. Um, Receiving, right? That's a feminine element, right? Um, and that once again, it kind of touches on that cultural programming that we have to output, to output, to output, right? And what happens when we receive, right? Mhm. Anyway, Emily, you're just the coolest, and I love like dropping out of time with you and
Love.
um
And I'm so grateful.
uh,
Where, where can people go to learn more about you and your incredible work that you're doing?
hypnotherapymind.com, or also on Instagram, hypnotherapy, mind underscore 33. Um, but also, uh, you know, my name is Candice Enriquez. You can Google me, you'll probably find me. Yeah, so for me, my mission, I think it's funny. A couple years ago, I set out and I was like, my mission is to like lessen the self-hatred on the planet. And I was like, that's a really weird way to word that. But whatever, like that's what came through. And I do think in birth, there's something about reclaiming this like innocent aspect of self and soul that is so helpful in that process.
Yeah. Thank you for seeing me and for holding space and for the unconditional love that you've held for me. I'm so deeply grateful.
Mm.
And I hope for anyone listening to this conversation that it meets you in whatever season you're in, whatever initiation or whatever space you're moving through. Um, because there's just so many nuggets of wisdom that I feel that, we can take and share from whatever journey that we're on
Mhm.
that really helps us each remember and ignite the divine light that we each are.
Mhm. Mhm.
So thank you.